So 6.1 is on rational expressions. So what is the keyword in rational?
Ration.
Ration, okay. What is the keyword in ration? Ratio. So ratio, what is a ratio? Comparing two things. So would you consider 1/5 a ratio? Huh? No.
Yes.
It is. Right. Of course, you write it as, 1:5 as a ratio, but that's a ratio as well. Something divided by something is a ratio. So a fraction is a ratio. That said, if we have something like x/5, that would become a rational expression. So anytime we have a rational expression, the first thing or two things that has to come to your mind you have to check the domain. Two, I explain it this way. Think of KFC, right? Do we like fried chicken? I'm hungry. Keep, factor, cancel. You can see if you should keep the terms as is, or if you can do something with them. If you just have to keep the other two steps midpoint. The next step is to factor, but the most important step is to cancel. We always cancel like terms between the numerator and the denominator so that the expression becomes simplified. So KFC. Checking the domain. This is crucial because what would happen if the denominator became 0? It wouldn't work, right? You cannot divide an expression by 0. Here, not a problem at all. 5 would never become 0, not in this universe. So this particular rational expression has no issues whatsoever. But if, for example, you had 1/x², can you plug in any real number in 1/x²? Or is there a number that we have to exclude? What do we do with 0? It won't work when x is 0. So this function or rational expression has the domain of all real numbers except x equals 0. So keep, factor. Oftentimes, when we factor, we will know what would give us a 0 in the denominator. I guess that's not here. That is our expression, and we want to find the domain of that expression. So, very first step, we have to check the domain. To check the domain, all we do is we set the denominator equal to 0. So I have 7 over x plus 2. If I set the denominator x plus 2 equals 0, what would the value of x be? X is negative 2. So I can plug in any number I want, but I cannot plug in negative 2 because negative 2 plus 2 would make the denominator 0. So in this case, the domain is all real numbers. Except x is equal to negative 2. Does it matter as to what we have in the numerator? No. The numerator is of no concern when we try to find the domain. All I'm interested in is the denominator, and we want to know what value would make the denominator 0. So x minus 5 would equal 0. Which would mean x is equal to 5. So the domain all real numbers except x is equal to 5. Is the numerator of any concern to us? No. All I care about is the denominator in finding the domain. So I want to set the denominator equal to 0, solve for x. X minus 7 equals 0, which would imply x is 7. So the domain would be all real numbers. Except 7. What should we do? Factor, very good. We want to factor the denominator. We have x squared plus 5x plus 6. How do we factor? Well, this is a quadratic function. Yes, we are going to set that equal to 0 and solve for x. What is that called? From 5.8. Well, this is a polynomial, but this entire thing.
Is it quadratic equation?
It's a quadratic equation. Last time, how did we solve a quadratic equation? Well, we solved it if we can factor. This particular problem, we can't factor. Factors. We did the exact same problem last time. Yes, x plus 3 times x plus 2 equals 0. We set each factor equal to 0, solve for x. X plus 3 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. So x is minus 3 and x is minus 2. So what two values would make the denominator 0? Negative 3 and negative 2. So those two values must be excluded from the domain. So the domain is all real numbers except x is equal to negative 3 and x is equal to negative 2. So the process is the same. We set the denominator equal to 0. We end up having a quadratic equation. How do we solve? We haven't gotten to the quadratic formula yet. So we have to factor. What are the two factors for x squared plus 5x minus 24? The factors are x plus 8 and x minus 3. The answer that you gave me are the roots, right? So the two factors are x plus 8 and x minus 3. We set those equal to 0 and solve for x. So x is negative 8 and x is positive 3. So the two numbers that would make the denominator 0 are negative 8 and positive 3. So the domain all real numbers except x is equal to negative 8 and x is equal to 3.